Um, Hi, welcome. We're here today to talk with Paulina Diaz, who was a teacher with me at one of the schools I worked at here in Central Valley and has just continued to be really inspiring to me on social media as she shares like books that she's reading or things she's thinking about or activism. And she is here to talk to you today about allyship, about stuff related to education. And we were just barely chatting about sustainability before we hopped on the live. So Paulina, welcome, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jenny. So again, my name is Paulina Diaz. I am currently looking for my next adventure, actually. So I have a couple of things lined up, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I know that the next steps in my career are going to be really important, so I just want to make a good choice about them. I'm in Bakersfield currently, and I kind of do want to stay here, so been looking at jobs here. Originally, I'm from Mexico and grew up in Seattle area, I guess I would say. Everett, about 30 minutes north of Seattle. Jenny, you've spent some time in Washington, right?
Yeah.
Was it Eastern Washington, or was it in
both? I'm from Vashon Island, but I lived in Tri-Cities for
okay. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. And then that's where you did Teach for America, right?
That's where I was on staff.
Oh, on staff. Okay. So I came down to Bakersfield due to Teach for America. I loved it. I taught in Delano chemistry for about 3 years, high school chemistry, and loved it. I loved it a lot. And it's definitely been a big part of what I'm thinking about now and how I address issues and how I approach, everything that I'm doing now. So really inspired by my time there. Grew so much, and I'm still to this day like reflecting on all the experiences that I had in Delano. I still hold that like piece of my life very, very close to my heart. Currently, like I said, looking for the next adventure, but I don't know where it'll take me.
Yeah, well, that's really admirable, and she's really underselling her 3 years of teaching. We used to have boardrooms in her classroom, and so we could see the stuff that kids were doing, and it was just so cool to be able to see that. And our school was super interesting, and you have had some direct experience in this, in that in Central Valley, not a ton of access for kids. From my perspective, that's one of the biggest barriers is post-secondary options, just getting out of a rural area and seeing places that are different. Like there were some kids who haven't really been outside of Delano, which Delano is a great place, so it's good to be there, but also just getting that access. And our former school used to do a lot to get kids to colleges. And didn't you get to see Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton speak?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was my favorite. So I was the student advisor for, at the time it was called Lady Leaders, I think it was. But we ended up changing the name to be more exclusive towards male students. So, that led to being asked that our group go on this like amazing trip. And it was about women empowerment in LA, and Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama streamed in live. We saw, Hillary Clinton, a ton of incredible people. And it was around Christmas time. I don't know, it was just so special. And having a relationship with my students beforehand, and then also being able to take that to LA and then take that to that area was something different, like another experience that I just would have never imagined, but really lucky to have that. And I think hopefully they continue to do that, but I don't know. I'm not sure what happened after I left.
Yeah. So one of the things I see you talking about a lot is teachers and their pedagogy and making pedagogy decolonized or student-centered or things like that. Why is that interesting to you? And some folks on the call might not know what pedagogy is. So what is it?
Yes. Okay. So I guess I thought about this question a lot when I knew you were going to ask it. And I even had to look up what pedagogy meant. I was like, okay, like if I'm going to talk about this, I guess I should really get the definition. But I guess in my sense, it's the kind of approach you take towards anything really. For me, it was teaching, of course, and it's more talked about in teaching, but the kind of approach, the mindsets, the strategies, the kind of culture you're taking towards what you're doing. I don't know if you could add to that or not, but so that's kind of what I get from that. And I think it's so important, because at the end of the day, teaching is an art. So no one is going to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. And, you know, there isn't like a strict guideline to follow when it comes to teaching. So you're going to make a lot of decisions based on your personal experiences, your background, whatever the case be. And that's really how your pedagogy gets built, depending on what you feel comfortable with, depending on, you know, how you were taught, how you want to teach. So it's super important, because it develops the culture of like your classrooms and how you teach. So I find it extremely important to do self-reflection when it comes to pedagogy. And definitely believe that like our personal identities are attached to the pedagogy we bring to the classroom. So your race and your background, all of those things are attached to how you address a person and how you teach somebody. So doing a lot of self-reflection and also understanding who you're teaching and what do they value and what are their experiences that they're bringing to the classroom, is how you build your pedagogy, and how you know, go about creating a culture, a strong culture in your classroom, a strong pedagogy in your classroom.
Yeah. I don't think I'd necessarily have anything to add in terms of like what pedagogy is or why it's important, but I think that I might phrase it as like the how of your teaching, and with that last part that you said about knowing who your students are and making it a place where all of the things that they bring with them are valued in the classroom is just, and it's hard, right? Especially with older kids. You know, you have to sort of shape expectations in the very short amount of time that you have them, like 45 minutes, about here's what's going to get done today, and like here's all of the things that we have to do and accomplish. And at high school you have a little bit more freedom because you don't have the standardized tests every year, but you still have credits and college going and all of those other things that sort of get in the way of like what is an art, right? Like it's this super beautiful, vulnerable thing to sit with someone and say like, hey, have you ever wondered, I don't know, I know nothing about science, so I was like, why water freezes to ice? And then I was like, I'm not in chemistry super deeply, but you know, just having conversations with them about that. You know, when I did my semester of math intervention at Wonderful, my class was called Math Leadership, and we mostly talked about leadership skills, and I like sprinkled on math. Yeah. I think the idea of having, you know, an approach to teaching where you value the person, I don't understand why that's not enforced more, you know?
Right. I don't understand why our whole education system isn't that way, but that's
one day at a time.
Right. One thing at a time.
What are some of the things that you see teachers do or that you've done as a teacher that you wish they'd reconsider, just in that vein of pedagogy and thinking about how we're teaching?
Oh, I think most importantly is just like building a relationship and a very genuine relationship. I think a lot, and I heard this was told to me all the time. You're so young, like in order to, you know, control your class and have good blah, 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 you need to day one, put your foot down, blah, blah, blah. Like all these things about, you know, how I was going to set up my classroom at day one and how I was going to set these power dynamics. Ultimately, it's what it really meant. But that didn't work for me. That's not who I am. That's just not how I approach any relationship in any workspace. And anybody, especially if I'm trying to teach them something like that, you know what I mean? So definitely just opening up about yourself and getting to know them. A lot of the times, and I know I feel this way, I learn best from people that care and love about me. and know that they want the best for me. You know what I mean? So getting to know the person and getting to know who's in front of you, and laughing and smiling, and being sad when you're sad, and being genuine, and also like policing emotions is another thing. Like if students are feeling a certain way, like, tests and all that stuff can wait. We need to see the humans in our students, no matter how young they are, how old they are. Just being genuine, don't police students at all, in terms of like a lot of things, but mostly I think a lot what happens is emotions. Oh, we need to get this test done, we need to do these certain things, and acknowledging sometimes students feel a certain way. I know I read the article that you had sent me the other day, and it talks about a teacher that goes through working in New York. 9/11 happened, the day he was in his classroom, and how he told students to continue working as this huge event was happening. These are humans. Anybody would be terrified. And so approaching it that way, and just realizing that, as they're human beings, and with I think anything, approach it that way. Consider that they're coming with experiences also, and you would want that same kind of empathy, I guess, is back to you if anything were to ever happen. So just being genuine, and also being less restrictive and a little bit more flexible. And yes, we're always told like there needs to be structure, but at the end of the day, like, you are working with humans, so please, please, please try not to police them.
Yeah. I had to look up what article I sent you because I was like, oh.
I forget the title, but I was reading it the other day.
Yeah, no, I just looked it up. It's Chris Emden's latest piece, and it's called "Teaching Isn't About Managing Behavior," which is super true. It's not. I think that it's one of those things about how teaching is an art and science, right? Like if you go into a classroom with a phenomenal teacher, you won't see behavior management problems. That's not because the teacher has policed those problems out of them. It's because the teacher's created a space where people feel safe, and they feel focused on whatever it is. And so you're right. Like if a kid is having a crisis, the test that's in front of them can be taken later.
Right.
The crisis needs to be responded to in the immediate. And I think just that sense of prioritization and thoughtfulness is one of the things that makes you such a strong educator, right? Like I was in an interview many years ago, and someone was asking me, they were asking a lot of values questions during the interview, and they said, if a student is having a hard time, are you going to stop and respond to that, or are you going to like keep teaching and let someone else take care of it? And I was like, if a student like feels ill or like is having an emergency, you need to respond to it. And they're like, oh, not everyone would say that. And I'm like, really? Like they're a human.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. And anybody who thinks that way does not need to be working with students or kids or people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's one of those things. I was talking to someone today about, they asked me sort of like what my perspective is on the educational system in America. And I was like, well, disappointed but hopeful.
Yes.
And I was like, I feel like for the last 20 years, we've tried a way. And that way was, hey, let's take those like data-driven results, business management skills, and let's put them in education. And let's see how it works. It's got to be effective. And it's been 20 years, and I would like to try a new experiment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, it's really tough because I hate to think that our students are experiments. Like I really hate, you know what I mean? I want to give our students the best, every student the best, but ultimately like our education like system has a lot of work to do. And so the sooner we can start, putting our hands in and really tweaking things and seeing how that, affects, just students in general and learning, and the sooner we'll get to that point where no student is an experiment and everybody is, and everything's completely thought out, and we know like what's working and what's going to work. And those things might change. So I'm also like, I like everybody's environment is so different, and in different times we're going to have, you know, different learning methods are going to work different. So at the end of the day, again, it's an art, and working with humans, I guess, in general is an art. So really getting a good balance of that.
Cool. So along that vein, if you could reinvent school, like if you were in charge of starting everything from scratch, what would school look like?
Okay, so like we've talked about a little bit, I would say first and foremost, definitely like event centered. So what are the current events? How is, you know, what do we need to learn about them? What has history taught us about what's happening now? And those would be our subjects, I guess, like, you know, what is happening, and the current things that are going on, and how we learn about them, and approaching it that way. I think also something that I value a lot is just learning from other generations. I love the youth, and I also love my grandparents and just older people in general. So I think like learning needs to be multi-generational. Like we need to combine ages, and of course, like just mix everybody up and learn that way, because there's so much to learn from one another. And I think just having age groups is it's holding us back from something. And I think that would be something we could experiment with, definitely, but multi-generational for sure. And then I guess also just considering kind of my background and my experience in education, like really taking into consideration the background of the person, of the student you're teaching, and creating, I mean, not even like exams or anything, but really learning about their experiences and their growth. And that's how we measure, and their, yeah, something like that. But a lot of different things, definitely like multi-generational, current event focused, and then also very, very personalized background and experience, all taken into consideration. So yeah, I think that's a couple of things I would do.
Yeah, yeah. I like the idea of in hearing you talk, I'm thinking just about like the power of your own story and sort of like knowing what that experience has been like, knowing where you want to go, knowing the struggles, and you know that's all tied to relationships too, right? Like those are things you should know about your students. Is like
Right.
what are their aspirations, what are their challenges?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. I also would like to open a school-based health center at the school. So.
Yes. Yes.
That was something really cool that Paulina and I were able to do together, is open a school-based health center at our last school, which was a real game changer. And we were also able to get students' mental health needs met, which I saw, I mean, the kids who would come to me were the kids who had the most problems. And, you know, it's funny now because like they were very self-aware of that. You know what I mean? They'd be like, I needed a place to calm down, so I just was in your office. Like I remember coming in my office one day and there's just high schoolers sitting there and they're like, we figured this was a good place to be.
Oh,
It's like,
that's awesome, Jenny.
yeah, I guess it's a good place to be. But they were like very open about the fact that like, yeah, we're glad that that place opened. Like me
Oh,
too.
good. Yeah, yeah. I wish I would have stayed to see like how it played out a little bit more, and I didn't get to see it, but I know that a lot of students were using it and we're really excited about it too. So
Yeah, it's still rolling. I think they've made a commitment to continue funding it regardless of what the state funding looks like, which is good.
okay, good.
So something that's a little bit tangential to what we talk about, but I think it's super rooted, is allyship. So tell me, that was one of the things you were super excited to talk about today. Like, what does allyship mean to you, and what are some of the things that you've learned about being a good ally and how other folks can be good allies as well?
Yeah. So, oh man, it's been a hard process, and I think allyship is very hard. And not as hard as, you know, being in the actual, you know, group that is being marginalized and oppressed, of course. But you need to, and I think before you take any steps, I do a lot of self-reflection about your your privilege, the resources you have. And of course, listen to whatever, you know, the group is talking about, what they need from you, their demands, and check those things off as soon as you can. Like, and this is every day. Like we mentioned, we need to make sustainable allyship something that we do every single day, from when we wake up to when we go to bed, at our jobs, you know, at our friends get-togethers, wherever we are. This is something we need to work on at all times of the day. Like it never goes away. So don't feel like it's a separate part of your life that you need to do. It's a part of your life at every time of day, wherever you are. So just realizing that. So this is not an issue that is not involving you. This is an issue that involves you always, at every time of the day. So that, just knowing that, I think is really important too. And then just uplifting the resources that you have and the privilege that you have. A lot of the times, and I felt this way when everybody started writing Black Lives Matter on the streets, and this is great, you know, we need to see this. We need things to see. But also, like, is this what the mayor, is it the best thing that the mayor can do? Because we know he has a lot of privileges, a lot of things that he's really great at. So is the best thing that he can do is to write, you know, a message out for us. And so I just questioned that a little bit. So, and of course I'm not Black, but speaking for, you know, being a woman, and being just an immigrant, like how that would mean, what that would mean for me. So just think about yourself, really reflect and think about, like, what are your resources? What are you most powerful in? Where can you have direct impact? Is it your family members at home? Is it your job? Is it where the funding is going? Do you write grants? Can you write grants? Can you help out that way? Do you need to put something in those grants to make sure stuff isn't happening? So just taking a deep reflection on, like, what your powers are, where your resources are, what your privilege is, and amplifying the messages that, you know, they need you to amplify and use and work towards. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That was great. I think that something that you said that I want to key in on a little bit is the idea of self-reflection. This is something I'm thinking through right now. I'm about to write a blog about white exceptionalism, or the idea that, like, yeah, all those other white people need to do the work, but, like, me, myself, I'm good. And so my current thinking about why that's important is that if I haven't done the self-reflection and thought about harm that I've caused and not dwell on it, right? Like that, I think that might be the deterrent for some people. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel bad. It's like, well, but feeling bad is temporary. And then you can consider, like, okay, that action was harmful. Maybe here's a different way I can do it. So what would you say to people who are stuck in that phase of, like, is it that important? I don't know. I just want to, like, write the letter about how Breonna Taylor's killers should be arrested. But I don't think I need to think about me to do that.
And this is, again, centering yourself and making this easy for yourself. Like, this is not easy. This is not easy. And if it is easy, then you're probably not doing what you need to be doing. So, and the easy way out is writing a letter. And everybody, you need to reflect and think about, like, what is easy for you, obviously, but we need to think about, like, why am I putting my feelings first versus, the feelings of the people that are actually being, oppressed, or whatever the case is. Like, why am I deciding that what I feel is most important at the time, when this is what's going on? So yeah, I think definitely sit and think about that a lot. Sit and think about your feelings, because in order for you to help somebody else, you need to realize, what they're going through too. But we need action. We need you to do something eventually with that. So that's not going to help anybody if you're just sitting with that. You know what I mean? So you need to make a plan. You need to talk to someone, but we need action after that, because at the end of the day, that's not going to get you any kind of change outside of just yourself. You could do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can do more.
Yes.
Important for people to hear. And I like the idea of making it not about you, right? Like, and take care of yourself, right? Like, go feel your feelings
Mm-hmm.
and feel them, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
don't ignore them, right?
Yeah.
Because that creates other toxic stuff. But yeah, okay, good. I'm gonna keep that in mind the next time I hear someone being like, maybe not for me.
What
Uh,
do you mean? Like, yeah, no, I don't get that at all. Like, I think that people say that don't understand the magnitude of the issue.
and I think that also bleeds nicely into the idea of performative allyship,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, because one might say the mayor painting Black Lives Matter on the sidewalk, which in Bakersfield we have yet to do. Mayor, go looking at you. Uh, but you know, painting the sidewalk, it's temporary, right? Like the paint goes away, and it doesn't. You know, I don't know if anyone walks along the street and is like, ah, okay, I
Right.
will stop.
Right. Right.
So how can people keep from being performative?
So I guess with this one is like, I guess, and with everything, I guess, is a lot of self-reflection. Like, where are you at in this journey of allyship? You know what I mean? And at some point, some people are just at the point of like, okay, I'm just going to put this out there and going to see how, you know, people on the street react or whatever the case is. But we need to get past that point. We need to get to the point where we are considering how we vote, considering how we're acting at work or what we're talking about at work, what we're letting our families talk about, and what we're not letting them, or, you know, what we're bringing up. So it's all a part of the journey, I think, but we need to move into things that are, we need to move and we need to regress. So I'm not saying there is a right, wrong, when it comes to like what is actionable, what is not, what is performative or not, but we need to keep pushing towards something with a bigger magnitude and a bigger effect. So yeah, whether that means if you are, you know, at the very initial stage, that's going to be very different from someone who's been doing a lot of work, what their actions would take place. But also just being careful that, yeah, it's not centering you. It's not, and honestly, you know, I have been guilty, like, but you have to take time to reflect and think like, what did I do? How are my actions sustainable and long-term? And how did they, how will they help generations to come and not just, you know, the people out on the street now? And then pedagogy of the oppressed actually talks about how we can't continue to have people seek out help, that we have to build systems for people to not seek so much help. And I think this kind of reminds me of that, like, we need to build sustainable supports and things that are going to ultimately change systems. Yeah.
Yep. I really hope the Senate heard that as they're putting together their relief package for
Yes.
COVID.
Yeah. That's happening this week. Yep.
Yeah, my partner and I were watching Senate Judiciary Committee earlier, interviewing Bill Barr about the the I don't know what they're actually called. I call them secret police in my head. I know that's not what they're really called.
The military, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the federal enforcement agents that are out in the streets taking people away and harming protesters. And I was like, I have to turn this off because there's nothing I can do at this very moment, but this is insane to me.
And honestly, like, I want to say that this is new, but this is happening to immigrants all the time. Like, this is, yeah, like, and I'm glad that people are seeing it now, but this is nothing new. This is nothing new. Like, for years, people are taken away, thrown into countries they don't know anything about, forgotten for. So I'm hoping that, you know, this becomes a bigger issue now that more people are seeing it, like, in person. But
mm-hmm. Yeah, that was when I started teaching was in 2009, when Joe Arpaio in Phoenix, Sheriff Arpaio, was in the process of getting the Show Me Your Papers law passed. And there used to just be, I mean, there probably still are. I think he doesn't work there anymore though, but
Oh, I don't know.
just roundups. And that, like, I don't know, it's just strange to live in a country that is about freedom, and like the freedom has been viewed as a commodity that we need to take away from people. Like it's a different world.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
um what inspires you? Like this work is really hard. We've talked about some things that are challenging. Like what motivates you to keep going?
So yeah, I think about this all the time because especially right now, it's been really hard with everything that's going on. Trying to stay motivated and trying to continue to like have that passion to learn and to grow is really important. So definitely like the people that are impacted by this the most, and I have like a lot of privilege in that, you know, some of these issues aren't directly impacting me, but I keep those people in mind because at the end of the day, like I could sit here in my apartment and everything's fine, but there's a lot of people that are working still, and there's a lot of people that can't go out on the streets or can't, you know, enjoy a walk on the street because, you know, the color of their skin, and that's who I keep in mind. So because at the end of the day, like we really, really, these are the people that are impacted. As much as we want to say this is, you know, makes me sad, blah, 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 whatever, like they are directly impacted by some of the situations that are going on currently. So keeping them in mind, and always, and this is the teacher in me, the students, the youth, like really, really inspire me. So I love a good story with like, you know, students leading the way or young people just leading the way, and really trusting them and giving them a voice, and listening to them, because a lot of the times they have so much important things to teach us. And I think a lot of that time gets passed. We just forget about it, or I don't know, I think a lot of times we think because they're younger, they don't know, or they can't teach us, or whatever the case. And that's another thing we need to change about teaching, by the way. But yeah, so the youth definitely, and then the people that are directly impacted by all of this mess, or any social justice issue. I just try to keep them in mind and think about like how can we get them direct help as soon as possible. Because yes, policy takes a while, but like how can I help them now, these people now, you know what I mean? And the work is at like a ton of different levels, and we need to be at every single level. But just realizing that, you know, there's a group of people that are directly impacted by the situation now, currently, and like what I'm doing for them, and how they might be feeling in the situation, and like what kind of support they would want from me. So yeah, that's, I mean, mostly that. I really, really loved when I was teaching, meeting parents, and a lot of them work in the fields, and a lot of my students work in the fields too, and just knowing that like I could be a part of their way to, you know, a healthier job, a job that, you know, is a little bit more, has, you know, treats them a little bit more like humans. So, you know, my parent teacher conferences were always really a big sense of motivation for me, because I got to meet like the family, and got to see directly like the kind of impact that I could have. And also of course with my students, but just the people that are directly impacted by all the issues.
Well, and getting to see that love and motivation for their kid, you know, like working in the field is not pleasant work,
Right.
right? Like it's hard on your body, it's hot,
Yeah.
you get paid terribly, but you get paid.
Right.
um yeah, and seeing that motivation that they have, that they'll like show up for their kids, and they have such big dreams for them.
Yes, and that goes for like any group. And I would say this to people that are not coming in contact. Like I would say, like you really get, not that we need this to see the humans in them, but it like really makes it something more personal, and it, like it fires you up even more to see it in person, and to see the, you know, the struggles that someone might go through in person. So um taking yourself out of your, you know, your little bubble or whatever the case is, to give support and help and get to know these people, I have found has like motivated me a lot more. So
Yeah, and I would, you know, if someone is watching this today and like struggling to think of what they could do, call your local homeless shelter.
mm-hmm.
Like they will have things that you can donate. They have, I called last week and was like, how can I? Well, I called to make sure they weren't going to be turning away transgender people first and foremost. I just got to a point where I was like, Derek, can we just like give the extra room in our house to homeless transgender people? And he's like, maybe call the shelter first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Follow that policy. And they are not, but they're like, you can come by any day, anytime. You can fill out the forms while you're here. And I was like, okay, yeah, it sounds like not a lot of people are calling and they could probably use some help. And those are people, you know, like Bakersfield has an insane homeless problem, especially given the climate here. Like
Mm-hmm.
in the winter, I could see it like being livable, but in the summer,
Yeah.
like it's wild to me. It's 105 degrees outside.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So how can people keep learning from you?
So I you could just contact me. Like I'm on Facebook. I love to talk, as long as you're willing to have like a very, you know, progressive, working towards a solution kind of conversation. And I love to be challenged. So please, 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 let me know if there's like anything I ever say that, you know, could be looked at a different perspective, or just you might want to talk to me about it a little bit. So that, like, I accept it. I want to learn. I know that I'm not perfect. And so just like message me. I'm on here. I'm on Instagram and on, yeah, no, on Facebook too. I have yet to get a Twitter. I don't know. I don't know how about it. I just, there's a lot of things already. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to jump into the Twitter bandwagon, but might have to do that. But yeah, just contact me on here, or definitely on Instagram too. But I'm willing to talk and support any kind of, you know, learning that goes on.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Paulina. I am definitely walking away with a personal challenge to make sure that I'm engaging in some sort of direct service in the next couple of days, to just make sure that I am sort of walking the talk of making sure that I'm continuing to show up for social justice and improve lives and outcomes for people who are currently marginalized.
And like we talked about, Jenny, like what you're doing at work, you know, it might just be that. It might be what you're doing at work too. So this is going to be a journey that is going to take place 24 hours a day. So try not to think of it as a separate thing. Try to think of it as something that you're going to add to what you're already, your life as it is. And
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, I'm
thank
gonna
you.
make us not live and not record.